Hey guys, it's Jasmine. Welcome to my channel. Today's project is going to be this really cute shaker birthday card, and I kept the colors in teal and green, perfect for a little boy's birthday, or maybe even the grown-up little boys in our life, if you know what I mean. Starting out with MFT, My Favorite Things, Magical Dragons stamps and dies. I got this tip from Prairie Paper and Ink, Amy R from over there. She keeps her dies intact and then lines up the stamps according to how the dies are attached to each other. And I really like this system. Makes it super easy. Because I hate cutting apart my dies and then having them loose in the little packets. And this kind of solves that problem. You can't do that with all of your stamps and dies because not all companies do it the same way they do. They don't nest their dies at all, so it makes it easier. But anyway, that's where I got that. That's how I do this. And I really like that system. So I'm stamping these using Bristol cardstock from Strathmore, using Memento Tuxedo Black ink. And I'm going to color these with Copics. And this is a Copic from the ink. I never have it smear or run with using Copics. And a good rule of thumb for when you want to kind of decide what kind of ink pad you want to use with what medium is that opposites attract. So alcohol markers work good with water-based dye inks, and you want to use something that is not water-based if you're using a water-based medium like Ziggs or Distress ink or something like that. So I've stamped out a bunch of my dragons and a couple clouds, and I'm going to use my Copics to color these dragons. And I wanted to do him in a green, a bright green with a little bit of an olive tone. So I'm using, let me see here, YG06, YG17, G05, and G09. G09 is the darkest tone I'm going to use, and the YG06 is the lightest tone. And the YG17 is a little bit more on the olive side of a yellow-green. So it gives it a nice contrast, and it gives it a little more of a realistic reptile tone, if you could go that far. But I really like how it turned out. And a good rule of thumb to remember when using Copics is it's easiest to do this in layers. And as you blend in the paper, as the paper gets saturated is when it blends. So you don't have to load tons of ink into the paper all at once. You can let it dry and come back to it. And you want to be careful of using too much ink as well, because you can cause it to bleed. And I did have a little tiny bit of bleeding issues, but not too bad. I also tend to color outside the lines. So that might be a problem, but it works anyway. That's why I like the dies, is because you can kind of fudge that a little bit when you're using the dies on these. So there's the YG17, and that's a little bit more of an olive tone. But then I go back and blend everything out using the YG06. And if it's not quite blended, you can let it dry for a second or two and then go back in and add another layer of YG06. That's kind of what I tend to do when things aren't blending the way I want them to, and it tends to work out well. So I go with my lightest tone and add another layer. And there's the G09, and that is the darkest tone I use, and I deepened up the shadows with that. And if you're looking to learn how to use your Copics better, Cindy Alnut has a Copic Jumpstart class on her website. It's inexpensive, it's really easy, it's self-based, so you can go back and rewatch the videos as often as you want and do the practice. I'm not very good at my practicing, but I did do it for that class and I did learn quite a bit. So I would recommend that class highly if Copics are something you're interested in maybe checking out, maybe learning more about. They are an expensive marker, but I really do love how they look and how they work, and they're fantastic. For me, it's worth it. So that guy's finished, and this cardstock is a separate piece, and this one is actually Spectrumar Crafter's Companion, which is my go-to cardstock, but I had heard that Bristol was really nice for Copic, so I tried that out, and I actually really do like it. That's really nice cardstock too. So those are two choices you can check out for yourself. Now this guy is pretty much colored the same exact way that I did for the first green dragon. So I'm going to go ahead and put some music on so you can watch me color this one. Some of the shading is a tiny bit different just because he's in a different position, so the shadows would look a little different. So that's why I included the coloring of him as well. So I'll put some music on and I will catch back up with you in a minute. Okay, we're almost finished up with that guy. So the shadows are a little bit different on him just because of he's meant to be flying. So by adding the shadows, you're enhancing the curvature of the leg and the curvature of where the hind leg meets the body. So that's just something to kind of keep in mind in terms of helping it to look more dynamic and helping it to look slightly more realistic. So this is kind of my layout. I wanted to kind of dry fit it together, if you will. And so I'm going to take a frame die, this is by Sizzix, and cut out the window in the middle. And we're going to do a shaker card with this. So you want to get some washi tape and run that through your Big Shot or any other die cutting machine. I love my Big Shot. It's my favorite. And you want to be careful of the washi tape because, as you can see, it will peel up your paper. So I wanted to put my sentiment down at the bottom, so I'm just using where I'm going to put the bottom dragon to help me place where the sentiment's going to sit. I'm going to put that in my MISTI. So I'm using this little ink cube for Delicata pigment ink, and I love the Delicata pigment inks. They are gorgeous, but the white wasn't standing out as much as I wanted it to. So I ended up heat embossing this. So if you don't have a Delicata ink, you can use any white pigment ink or any pigment ink for that matter, because we're going to emboss it, or you can just go with Versamark to stamp your sentiment. And I'm using some Wow Metallic Platinum Sparkle Embossing Glitter. It's a really long title. And basically it's a platinum embossing powder with silver sparkles in it. Really pretty. I love Wow embossing powders. They are fantastic. So I've got that heat set, nice and shiny. And then on the back, we're going to build our shaker. So I'm using some 1/4 inch score tape around the perimeter of the die cut window. And then I use my bone folder to really burnish that down. And I've got a piece of acetate and we're going to stick that over the top. And to build the shaker window, I'm going to use some 3M foam tape that is double thick. And then when you're doing this with if you use fun foam or foam tape or however you want to do it, you need to make sure that every joint where the foam tape meets is solid, so that you don't want any gaps in between your foam tape, because if you get gaps, then you get leakage basically. You have, the smaller bits like glitter or baby seed beads can slip out. Sometimes if you're using the larger sequins, it's not a big issue, but if you're using glitter or seed beads, any smaller particles, they can fall out if you've got gaps. So just something to keep in mind. So that is the Big Mama roll of the 3M foam tape. I get mine on Amazon, but it lasts forever. I think I've had this roll for at least a year and I may be halfway through it. So you fold it over itself so you get double thickness, and then really easy, just take your scissors and trim it into half, or you can do thirds, depending on how thin you want or need the foam tape to be on the back of your project. Now I have seen people tear their foam tape. It doesn't seem to like to tear for me, so I just cut it just because it's easier. But either way that works for you is good to go. So I put the rest of the foam tape around the perimeter just to add support to the rest of the cardstock so it doesn't cave in or anything. And then that green glitter cardstock is also from My Favorite Things. Oh, and the teal one is too. Tropical Teal and Sour Apple are both from My Favorite Things cardstocks. And the sequins I'm using are from Little Things. And I think it's called Lake House or Mountain Lake. It's Mountain Lake. So I put those in my window, and before I got too far, I remember to put my little powder tool around the edges. So then I'm attaching my green sparkle cardstock. And I did have an edge poking out on the one side, so I just took my scissors and trimmed that off. So next we're going to use some more foam tape to attach our dragons. Now on the bottom dragon I just used one thickness of the foam tape because I wanted a little bit of dimension with him, but not as much. And foam tape is super sticky, so you won't have it falling off. And then for my flying dragon, I have him set up on a double thickness of the foam tape. So he's got just a little bit more height than the bottom dragon. And I also strategically placed him to cover up that little torn edge there at the top. I like to really support all the different edges for my die cut pieces, and that's why I tend to cut like little triangles and kind of puzzle piece it in there. It makes me feel better. You go to all this work on something, you want it to last and stay put and stay supported, so there he is flying. And then for a finishing touch, I just went with my Spectrum Noir clear sparkle glitter pen. I've got to shorten the names on these things. And put some glitter on his belly and his wings. So this is perfect for any little boy or little girl birthday, and might even work for the little boys that we married. So thanks for joining me today, guys, and check out all of my social media. Join me over there. Lots of fun stuff on Instagram, Pinterest, all that good stuff. So thanks for hanging out with me. I hope you have a really good start to your new year, and we will catch you on the next video. Have a great day, guys. Bye-bye.